We'll be filming a prediction video for one of the biggest games of the week one college football season. I'll be doing Georgia versus Clemson. So if you've watched my prediction videos before the season started, you obviously know who I think is going to win the game. But I'm going to go a little further than that and give a score prediction. Now I know it's pretty much impossible to get a score prediction exactly right, but this is just an estimate of how I think the game's going to go. In my opinion, if Georgia is going to be as good as they're supposed to be this year and as good as I think they're going to be, and I think they're going to be really good, they've got to win this game because I know you may think that Georgia losing to Clemson wouldn't look really bad for them, but the name Clemson doesn't mean as much in college football now as it used to. On the rosters, at quarterback, Georgia has a big advantage over Clemson. Carson Beck will probably have even bigger numbers this year than he did last year, even without Brock Bowers at tight end. Cade Klubnik is a terrible quarterback. He's not real accurate. He's not very good at throwing the deep ball, and he's a was a turnover machine last year. He just doesn't seem to know what he's doing. And at wide receiver, Georgia probably has a little bit of an advantage over Clemson. Now, Georgia doesn't have a top 10 wide receiver, but they've got several good wide receivers. And Clemson, they've got some decent wide receivers and a good tight end. Jake Britting still coming back, but they don't have any receivers like the ones that their roster used to be loaded with, like Hunter Renfro. So at running back, I do like Clemson's starting running back Phil Maffa. From what I've seen of him, he's not the fastest running back, but he's a really good running back at breaking tackles. A very tough runner. I think he'll be 1,000 yard rusher this season. And at running back, Georgia is gonna be hurt, I think, in this game. So I saw that they're starting running back Trevor Etienne, who transferred this year to Georgia from Florida, is likely going to be suspended for this game because of an arrest this offseason for driving drunk. And another one of their running backs, Roderick Robinson, who is a good running back, I saw is going to be out with an injury in this game. It will just really be a Branson Robinson, the other one of their top three running backs, being the one that gets pretty much all of the carries in this game. So on the offensive line, though, Georgia has a huge advantage over Clemson. Georgia has the top five offensive line in the country, no doubt. And Clemson's offensive line, even though it's one of the most experienced ones in the country this year, those players that uh, played for them last year really struggled last year to protect the quarterback and block and open up holes for their running backs. Clemson has struggled these last several years to put offensive linemen into the NFL. Now, even though I do think that Georgia will have a big advantage over Clemson on the offensive line, I don't think they have a big advantage over them on the defensive line. Clemson's defense, I'm not real high on it. I think they'll have a good defense, but not a top five defense. But I am really high on their defensive line. They've got two elite players on their defensive line, T.J. Parker and Peter Woods, and I think their defensive line can match up pretty well with the Georgia offensive line and slow down the Georgia run game some, especially with Georgia missing two of their good running backs. But Georgia's defensive line is also going to be really good. Now, I don't think it's quite as good as it was in 2021 and 2022 when they won those two national championships. But they have Michael Williams on their defensive line, who's a really good pass rusher coming back. So I do think that Georgia's defensive line will dominate the Clemson offensive line. And the rest of Clemson's defense, the linebackers and secondary, I'm not real high on. I think they'll be solid there because of Dabo Sweeney's good coaching. But other than a linebacker, Barrett Carter, and safety R.J. Miggins, Clemson's full of unproven players at linebacker and in the secondary. And Georgia's linebackers in secondary, I think, are going to be really good this year. They're so talented and deep at linebacker, and the same thing in the secondary. They have Malachi Starks coming back at safety, who's one of the best defensive backs in the country, and probably the second best safety in the country, and they're full of other really talented defensive backs. So Georgia's best linebacker, Smile Munden, who may be their best defensive player, probably either him or Malachi Starks. He got arrested this off season for racing down the highway, and I don't know what's going to happen with him. I haven't seen anything, but Kirby Smart is really secretive about these kinds of things. So you really just have to turn on the game and see if he's playing to find out anything. But it could hurt them if he wasn't going to play in this game. But I do think that Georgia is clearly a much better team than Clemson, and I do think that Clemson is going to struggle to slow down the Georgia passing game. I think Carson Beck will make some big plays in this game, throwing the football, and I just don't think Clemson's offense is going to be able to do much in this game. I think them being dominated by Georgia's defensive line will slow down the Clemson run game. And I just don't think that Klubnik is the type of quarterback that's going to be able to do much on a Georgia secondary that is elite. So I do though think that this game will be close for three quarters. I think that Clemson's defense will keep them in the game, but I think that Georgia will pull away in the fourth quarter and win this one by two touchdowns. So my score prediction is Georgia 27, Clemson 13. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back very soon, and I'll be making more of these types of prediction videos.